Hi everyone, hope you all enjoyed the morning session and we are very happy to meet you all again here today. I'm Banya and I will be your host for this session with Yukti. In this session, we will discuss ways to make your oral and poster presentations effective, crafting an effective CV, and also we'll discuss a little about networking skills. Following these sessions, we will have career talks to help you navigate through your careers and also to help you appreciate what goes into crafting a career when you have a degree in science. The first talk in the career talks will be by Dr. Roop Jyoti Talukdar. Roop is a physician scientist at Asian Institute of Gastroenterology, Hyderabad. And the second talk will be by Dr. Smita Jain, who is the Executive Director of India Bioscience. In addition, we have a 10-minute special session at the end of all these talks by the founder of SciRoy. SciRoy is a science, media, and communication enterprise working towards building an ecosystem for science students, researchers who are interested in exploring science communication as a career or just wanting to develop science communication as a skill. So before we begin, I can quickly repeat the housekeeping announcements for you just to help you navigate this console and engage better. This session is being recorded. The recording will be available through the India Alliance YouTube channel. You can revisit the recording anytime you want. As your audio will be off, I request you to drop your questions anytime in the question box. We will take up the questions at the end of every talk. And if you plan on sharing the highlights of the workshop through your social media handles, just feel free to tag us. Also, an important announcement is that if the session ends abruptly due to any technical glitch, you can join back using the same registration link. So before we invite our first speaker for this afternoon session, you will have to just bear with me for a few more minutes because I will very quickly talk about the funding opportunities available at India Alliance that you can explore. So I will start with the research fellowships. To catalyze high quality biomedical and health research and build research capacity in India, India Alliance has successfully steered 3 types of fellowship programs that support researchers at different stages of their career. So these are the early career, intermediate, and senior fellowships. And these are given by India Alliance under the track of basic biomedical research and clinical and public health research. So what you see on your screen is how our research fellowship program looks like. And this fellowship program, it funds individual scientists. A PhD is the prerequisite to apply for any of our basic biomedical schemes. And for clinical and public health research, an MD or an MD PhD or any equivalent degree is the basic requirement. So we provide these fellowships to scientists at different stages of career. I have already said this at the start. You can be starting from early career fellowships for postdocs who can plan to pursue a career in science. We and are looking for funding opportunities for an independent research position. Intermediate fellowships for scientists who plan to set up an independent research group. And then lastly, we have the senior fellowship for established researchers who plan to expand their research program in India. In addition to these research fellowships, India Alliance also has a number of research grants with a focus on enhancing the India's health research ecosystem and addressing major health challenges for India and of course for the world. India Alliance now offers funding schemes for collaborative research projects and also clinical research training through some of its grants like Team Science Grant and Clinical and Public Health Research Centers. So the Team Science Grants funds teams that bring together high quality scientists from multiple institutions with complementary skills, knowledge, and resources to address one important health challenge for India. Moving on to clinical public health research centers, these are envisioned actually as virtual research-oriented centers, which focus either on cross-cutting or vertical research themes. And a unique initiative is that to build capacity, clinical research capacity, and integrate basic with clinical and public health research and develop physician scientists. These clinical public health research centers can have an embedded clinical research training program. You can learn more about these fellowships and grants at the India Alliance website. Lastly, I would like to leave you with some unique funding opportunities of India Alliance. One of them is India Research Management Initiative of India Alliance, which aims to strengthen research ecosystems in India. This is done by building capacity for research management through a funding program that includes both fellowships and grants. Second is India Alliance also provides funding to researchers and public engagement practitioners to explore creative methods to engage with the public on matters of research, science, and health. We encourage you to explore these different opportunities through the website of India Alliance. You can also keep checking our social media channels to hear more about our funding programs, our other capacity building initiatives, and keep up with the progress that we are making. With that, I think we can move into the first talk of our afternoon session. I would like to invite Hina, who is the Communications and Public Engagement Consultant at India Alliance, to talk about presentation skills. Over to you, Hina.
Thank you, Vanya. I'll quickly take a minute to share my screen. युक्ति मेरी स्क्रीन क्यों नहीं शेयर हो रही है? शेयर हो रही है क्या?
Hina, we can see your screen now. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you all of you for being patient for this 1 minute or so. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you had a wonderful morning today, as we could guess from your enthusiastic responses. Now we start the second or the afternoon session of the day, and we'll be taking you through some important career skills like presentation skills, which I would be taking, and upcoming talks. So we need to talk about our science. Whether you are a student or a researcher or a faculty, your science is not appreciated until it's communicated, which is why we'll be talking about presentation skills today. My name is Hina. I am a communications and public engagement consultant at the DBT Wellcome Trust India Alliance, and we'll straight away dive into why do we even need to present our science to others. So while few causes or reasons are very prominent, we need to communicate new research perspectives. We need additional funding if we are a faculty or a growing researcher. We need to increase awareness about science and scientific method. We need to form collaborations and partnerships, and of course, inspire the next generation of researchers. But there are, of course, other causes that are not looked at so prominently. You obviously, as a faculty, you need to increase student recruitment. As a student, you need to develop your skills. You feel a personal sense of accomplishment. You enjoy it. You enhance the quality of your research by the feedback that you get when you present your research. And that, of course, helps in enhancing your career. Now, what's worse than giving a presentation? It's giving a presentation on presentation skills, which I am going to do today. Now, scientific presentations can be categorized into many n number, but we would categorize them as 3. They could be PowerPoint or lecture style presentations, which are formal. They are the so-called classroom mode, and you first tell people what you're going to tell them, and then you conclude with what you've already told them. So you have a forecast and you have a summary. In case of poster presentations, which is a more static visual format, you have all the information in one place. It's sort of semi-formal, not as formal as the tutorial or classroom mode. And you pick and you choose what story you want to tell from your research. And the third one is an elevator pitch, which is quite informal. It should last no longer than a short elevator ride of 20 to 30 seconds. So you should know how to pack all your information in that small amount of time. So we would discuss the PowerPoint presentations and poster presentations in detail today, the mistakes that we tend to make and how we can correct them. So this is how a conference presentation usually looks like. We plan it to the last detail. We think we would introduce ourselves, describe the outline of our talk about what motivated us to do the research, the methodology, the design, results, conclusions. People would applaud. There would be people clapping in the auditorium. You would have an engaging Q&A for 15 minutes, and that's how you would end. But that does not happen in the real world. What happens is you are interrupted by technology playing the villain. Your mic might not be working. If it's virtual, which is the way of the world now, you would have disturbances in the audio and video. You forget introducing yourself. Your laptop decides to crash at the last moment. You spend way too much time setting the context, which maybe I am doing right now. And then you have unruly audience members who want to ask a question that is not relevant to your presentation, and by the time you come to the point, you realize that you have only 3 out of the 15 minutes allotted to you. So the rest 30 of the slides go by in a thunder, and there's an awkward silence instead of a Q&A. And why does this happen? Because of something called PowerPointlessness. So PowerPoint doesn't kill presentations. It's the people who do. It's you and me who can make or break a presentation. Now, what are some common mistakes that we tend to do with our presentations? The first is we think I can use all the space on the slide. So if I have a blank canvas, like you can see right now, I would fill it with information, with colors, with text of different sizes, different fonts, and everything possible. So I'm sure all of you have seen slides like this in presentations that you've attended, or maybe we have been guilty of presenting such a slide. This is the mistake number one. I'll tell all that I know. So a very famous writer once said that it's okay to know two things and write only one. So it's not necessary that if you know all of this information on this slide, you need to present all of it on the slide. So you could actually present this as bullet points, something that I would take up later in this session. But this is again a mistake that you need to avoid. Your slide should not have all the information that you have on your mind. You can always make up for it in the way you talk to your audience. Now, life needs color, and so do my slides. So I want to include all the colors available on the palette in PowerPoint. I'll use blue, yellow, purple, green, orange, and this is how my slide would look like. My audience's eyes would cry, but I don't care because my slides should look colorful. We all have again made that mistake, especially when we are in the formative years in our college life. And this is something that we need to learn later on, not to do this. Or something like this, excessive use of word art, something that we should have left back in school. Or some of us may think, I don't like colors, so my audience also doesn't like it. So my slide would look something like this. Again, my audience would have to shrink their eyes to be able to read the text on this slide. The colors, the contrast is not working. The background is too dull. The table is not in contrast with the background. The numbers do not make up what they want to tell, the story that they want to tell. So again, the choice of colors can make or break your slides. Remember, slides are a visual medium, so colors will enhance or degrade them. Then I think I am the one reading my slides and not my audience. So I'll be humble. I'll use a very small font. I'll just read it to my audience. Also, important people sit in the front, so I don't need to care about the backbenchers, right? So this is how my slides will look like. This is a picture that we got from a scientist at TIFR when he tells us how to give a bad talk. So if your slide looks like this, your audience is bound to lose interest. And if I need to add pictures, I'll add again all the details to my pictures. So this is what my pictures will look like. I will not care about illustrations. I will not care about visual appeal or the aesthetics. And this is how I will illustrate. I again don't care about my audience. Also, my audience is very respected, so I won't make eye contact. This applies more when we used to give in-person presentations. So if you think that blocking the screen or turning your back to the audience or facing the screen is a good idea, it is not. You should always maintain eye contact with your audience. Also, if we think that we'll cover each and every slide that we have prepared, because I have worked hard on my slides and people have come for my talk, so I can just talk faster and then cover all the slides, and maybe I can just skip the summary and conclusions in the end. Will this work? This won't. Also, the biggest of them all, I think I don't need to practice, because that would waste the time that I spend in doing research. So I would rather produce data. I would rather beautify my slides, but not waste a minute practicing. And how would I appear spontaneous if I practice? If we have thoughts like this, which we do tend to have, it results in, again, disasters. And all my tricks work. So this is how my audience looks when I present before them. Or if you are a little lucky, they don't sleep, but they are having thoughts like the ones that you can see on the screen right now. So they would be wondering about the colors on the slides, the color of your t-shirt, somebody is busy WhatsApping, or the backbencher is sleeping. They don't even know what the slides are saying and are just waiting for your presentation to be over. You can change it to a scenario like this, where they are in a sense of wonder, and a good one. They are getting ideas that they never got. They are wondering if the techniques that you're presenting can solve their problem. You have unknowingly maybe presented a solution to their problems. They might, if you're a faculty, they may want to join your group for a PhD. And even if it's not their research area, the way you've presented it has got them interested in your area now. How do we turn that bored and sleeping audience to an audience that is attracted to your presentations? You need to prepare in advance. So you need to know that oral presentations need to have a strategy, a structure, and a style. The strategy is something that comes when you understand the purpose of communication. You need to know whether you are presenting to an audience that is here just to learn about how scientific method works. Is it somebody who's going to fund your research? Is it somebody who is actually here to learn, purely learn something from you? Or is it a student? So there could be a number of scenarios, and your strategy would depend on the kind of audience and the purpose of your communication. Structure. Structure matters the most. You need to develop a logically compelling story. So hard numbers and the truest of facts don't work as good as a compelling story. So you, with proper organization, proper visual aids, contingencies, and supplementary material that you can maybe direct them to, you can turn your so-called boring piece of research into a logically compelling story. And stories is what attract people. Then you might have the best slides in the world, you might have the most compelling story in the world, but if you don't present it well personally, if you don't have that controlled enthusiasm that is needed to hold your audience's attention, you would again lead to a failure in presentation. So your tone, your gestures, your eye contact, your enthusiasm, everything matters. And then enthusiasm doesn't always mean being loud or being flashy, be it your slides or your voice. So this especially applied to when we were in the pre-COVID era, when we used to have in-person presentations, but this applies again equally when we are engaging with each other virtually. We might think that nobody knows what's going on at my end, but your voice, your gestures can convey all of it to your audience. Now, what would you want from a talk? Because when you have the purpose clear in your own mind, you would be able to structure a talk much better. So you want content. Content is the king. You want to know the new information that you want to convey. you want to pose an interesting question, or maybe you want to convey how people in other fields think to a different audience, to describe a novel discovery, or just suggest new directions for a field. So your content has to be clear, and then you want clarity and organization in your content. So you could have a lot to say, a lot on your mind and on your slides, but if it is not understandable, if it is filled with jargon that is not understood by any member of your audience, if it's not well organized, and if you don't catch up, if you space out between something, and if you keep running over time, a 20-minute presentation runs into 45 minutes, be it filled with the best information in the world that the audience had come for, they would not pay attention. So clarity, organization will take you places. And then the style and delivery. So you want to keep your audience awake, especially if it's an afternoon session like this one. You want to vary your voice. You can't speak in a monotone like Alexa. You have to convey enthusiasm. You have to be excited about what you are presenting. If you're not excited by what you're presenting, your audience is sure to not be excited. You should not stay in just one place. This is, if you're presenting through a webcam, you obviously want to stay in one place. But if you're presenting in person on a stage, you don't want to stand right behind the podium all through your talk. And again, you want to seem friendly and approachable. If you expect a good, healthy Q&A later on, you want to seem approachable to your audience and not somebody who would end up giving terse replies to them. And then expertise. So you could have everything on your slide. Somebody could get you the content, prepare very nice slides for you, and help you with the style and delivery, but you need to have expertise in the field. People trust you when they consider you an expert in the field. While their parameters for considering you an expert might vary, but basically they should consider you a credible source of information. So be sure that the sources you have used are credible and the information that you have is credible. And if you don't know something that an audience member asks, you're humble enough to state that you might want to check it out later. So you want to inspire trust and confidence in your audience. Now, the main goal of your presentation is to get your audience to pay attention to you, understand what you are saying, and to be able to act upon your message. If you do have a call to action or a message in your presentation, you want your audience to go back and try to implement that. Now, you can see the audience is bold on this slide because your audience is the king of what you're going to present. If you don't keep your audience in mind, you could have the best things in the world to present, but you would end up with a failed presentation. So you need to figure out 5 W's before you start preparing the slides. This would also be known to people who are interested in journalism. So you need to know why. What is the purpose of your presentation? Who's the audience? Again, an asterisk there because your audience matters the most. What is your content? So you know why you're presenting this and to whom, but what do you actually want to tell them? This would again depend on what your audience is. When? So you need to know my presentation is a 5-minute pitch, elevator pitch kind of presentation, or a 20-minute long form presentation. This would determine what kind of presentation you would design and how fast or slow or succinct you would be. And then where? So this again, in the pre-COVID era, this would mean whether you would be on a stage, what is the size of the conference hall, and all of that. And now when we are in this era, when we are engaging virtually, you probably need to take care of the fact that your background might have noise, might have visual disturbances. So you need to take care of where you want to situate yourself. Now again, know your audience. We'll keep stressing on the fact that you need to know your audience. You need to keep in mind that they might be tired, like many of you today. They can read, so I don't need to read everything on the slide. They may have read the abstract. So if you're giving a research presentation in a conference, they may have already read your abstract, but don't assume that they have read it. Present just the right amount of information for all of them. They are thinking, why should I listen? So for any communication effort, the person at the other end, the recipient, is looking for a reason to listen to you and to not listen to you. So you need to make sure that they listen to you by making sure why they're listening to you is the reason is delivered through your presentation. And non-experts will tune off within 2 minutes. So if I'm presenting something, especially in science, you have super specialized areas. And if you're presenting something filled with very hard to understand language and very hard to comprehend slides, the non-experts will tune off in 2 minutes, and even experts will doze off in 5 minutes. And your beginning is crucial, while the rest of it is again crucial. So the first 2 minutes is the time, not evaluated scientifically, but yes, the first 2 minutes is the time that you need to plan well, and the rest shall follow course itself. So before you start off, people are already ready to evaluate you in the first 2 minutes. They know who the previous speaker was. If it was somebody who was boring, who's already put them to sleep, you have a hard task in front of you. If you had somebody who got them all excited, you again have a hard task keeping them excited. They are looking at the choice of your template for the slides. They are looking at the info and clutter on the opening slide, the adjustment of the mic, in this case, earphones or the camera. They're looking at the movement, the shaky movements of your laser pointer if you're in an auditorium, your demeanor, and a lot of other factors that you may not be able to guess. So what do you do in the first 2 minutes? You don't read the title of your presentation as it is. You paraphrase it. You talk about what you are going to talk about. You may want to write down what you want to say in the first minute. While you may not read it exactly word to word, but it will really help you set context and help you get less nervous. And summarize the key finding right away. Don't wait for the end to conclude. You can actually conclude in the beginning. So your first slide should, traditionally it used to be an overview or an outline slide, but you can do away with that and instead start with something that is a question or a motivating example or something very striking that will hold their attention. You want to show magic, so you may bring the conclusion to the first slide and then get them to wonder how will you reach to this conclusion through the course of your presentation. And you may start with a startling figure and not a text filled slide. So now the type of presentations and of course your first slide would vary depending on what time you've got. So the content might be same, but when you tailor it for different time durations, your presentation would differ. For example, if I'm presenting for an India Alliance Fellowship interview, which gives me only 5 minutes, versus when I'm presenting for a department talk, which gives me 20 minutes, my approach would differ. In case of the 5-minute talk, I would quickly introduce myself, if required, give a background, my key message, and a strong call to action. So what I want my audience to take away from today's presentation. Whereas if I am giving a 20-minute presentation, I would have the intro slides, the content slides, and then the final slides. So in the first case, I would have to sum up in 3 slides, while in the second, I can take the liberty of making 12 to 15 slides. Now, how do you structure your presentations? So in the intro slides, you have something attention getter. You need to establish the need for what you're going to speak, the task or the main message. You can show a preview of what is coming up. You can then broaden up into expanding each of the points that you've mentioned in the preview, and then again narrowing it down to the conclusions and closing remarks. So this is what your talk should look like. You start broad, you get into the specifics, and then again, you end broad. So for example, we may take some examples now. You have a project on liver disease. This is one slide where you have a biograph, a text-filled slide, which we tend to make. And then here we have an I'm a character, you have liver hair, visual appeal. So your audience doesn't have too much information, but they are intrigued to learn what is coming up in the upcoming slides. This would also depend on whether this is a research talk or an outreach talk, if your audience is from your research area or somebody who's not from the research area but might be interested. Now again, if you have a slide like this, which has a figure, lot of text, all that was filled in the paper, versus a slide which is something like this, where you have points coming up as bullets with animation, and you have succinct points, which one would act better to attract the attention of your audience? Obviously not this one, it would be this. So make sure that even if you have a lot of text to fill on your slide, it is categorized into those succinct bullet points. Now, something that goes on the result slides often You see a lot of figures, tables, bar graphs, and a lot of text. You don't want to do this again. What you can instead do is summarize your result as the title of the slide. So the audience doesn't have to look into your slide for the key point. You can show what the figure shows here in terms of very succinct statements. So the audience wants to know what is red, what is green, and what is blue, and that is what you're telling them here. This should be enough. And for the conclusion slide, you don't want too many bullet points. So bullet points are good, but excess of anything is bad. So you don't want too many bullet points. It would defeat the purpose of bullet points. So conclusions can have bullet points, but then in moderation. So you can have 3 to 4 bullet points in the conclusions. Now, in case of acknowledgements, you can, or in fact, you must recognize everybody who has contributed to your research in small or big role. So it has to be a supervisor, lab members, collaborators, funders, institution. And of course, you want to thank them, but don't keep a thank you slide only, which we've been doing throughout college years, because your last slide is going to be the slide that will be stuck on the screen for the duration of the Q&A. And you don't want to miss this opportunity. You can instead use the summary of your talk as an illustration, or your website address, or a problem, or nice pictures, or any conclusions or takeaways that you want your audience to take away from your presentation, instead of just a thank you flashing on the screen. So in general, you want to plan and design your slides well in advance. You want to keep them short and simple. Less text, more visuals. You can also include a video that summarizes your text. Use a consistent design and format for all slides. You don't want to keep jumping between formats and colors between your slides. Check for spelling errors. I'll be happy if you can spot some here. Use the title of the slides to convey the key message. That way you save space and make your slide attractive. Speak loudly and clearly. Pause at key points. Repeat key points and full terms of abbreviations. Don't expect your audience to know everything, every little abbreviation of your research area. And practice, practice, and practice. So when you express enthusiasm to your topic and receptiveness towards the audience, you obviously have an engaged audience. For the font choice, you want to use plain fonts that don't have unnecessary curves. You don't want informal fonts like Comic Sans MS. You want to use sufficiently large letters, but not very large. 18 to 24 is a good range. And you can see how the different font sizes look to the audience. And you don't want to think like a speaker, think like your audience, and then you would be able to present better. You don't want to read from the slides and end your presentation abruptly. Don't rush through the slides, and this needs practice. Avoid distractions. In case of stage, it was to empty your pockets and turn off your phone. In case of the presentations virtually, you want to be in a place which is quiet and doesn't offer you distractions. You want to face the audience and not the screen when on a stage. In case of a virtual presentation, again, you want to look into the webcam as much as possible and not here and there. You don't want to block the view of the screen, which is not applicable in this case. And if you want to leave your audience with any supplementary information, do it before or after the talk. Don't confuse them in the middle of the talk. Now, how to handle your audience? So the audience is the king, as I said earlier. So what you want to do is prepare very well, rehearse several times. You can practice in front of your friends and colleagues, which we call mock presentations. You want to preempt the questions or predict the questions. All of us can do that and prepare for those questions and then answer them briefly. In case there is a possible argument or a conflict with an audience member, be civil. It never hurts. So even if you have a differing point of view, you can always tell them that, I have an alternative perspective. And an optional idea is to memorize your first slide or first couple of slides so you get into that flow better. That brings us to an end to the PowerPoint presentations and a very quick set of slides now on how to convey your science through posters. Now, this has varied again because of COVID. So pre-COVID, we would say that a poster is better than a talk because you have personal interaction. It helps you train for a greater level of public speaking. You have more engagement. People can view your poster in your absence, but all of this is not possible these days. So you might be presenting through a screen, but the guiding tools or the points remain similar. So you want your poster to be legible to people. You want them to be able to read it. So it could vary depending on whether you're presenting through a screen or in person at a conference. But you want to make sure that your text can be read by people from a distance. Again, don't use fancy or flashy fonts. Do not use all uppercase in your posters, even in your emails. Don't use boldface or italics. In fact, sorry there. You need to use boldface or italics to be able to shift your audience from point to point, depending on their importance. And don't use too much text again. So you need to give space for your text to breathe on the poster. So your text and figures should be legible from 5 to 7 feet away in case of an in-person hard paper poster, and not in case of the one you're presenting on a laptop. You need to choose your background color carefully. White is often the best, but you can of course experiment if you're confident that this would not disturb the visual appeal of the poster. You need to leave breathing space around your text, and do not use a different font type, but just use bold and italics to highlight important points. And label all your figures, photos, and graphs. So if somebody is viewing your poster in your absence, they should not be left looking for you to be able to understand your poster. Your poster, the labels should be enough for the person to understand it. So this could be a guiding theme for your poster. You need to separate it clearly. A nice organization always helps, like in case of slides. You need to state your background and hypothesis, the methods, what did you find, the conclusions, references, and acknowledgements. You can use pictures wherever possible, so that, again, since this is a visual medium, they will always convey more than a bunch of text dumped into the poster. So this is an example of what not to do. You don't want to keep a poster as monotonous and text heavy as this one. Nobody comes to a poster to read a full research paper. So nobody is going to read through all this text. Even if you have a lot of text and less pictures, make sure to organize it into key bullet points, into nice illustrations, figures, and all of that. It's not difficult. And then this is an example again. Again, your poster has figures, but the text that you see is again heavy and it doesn't have enough space to breathe. The size is so small that I cannot read this even on my laptop screen, leave apart reading in person on a hard paper from 5 to 7 feet away. So you don't want to design a poster like this one as well. You could pick the good elements like the use of graphics, but leave the bad ones like a lot of text and no breathing space. So this brings me to a wrap up of today's presentation. Before I wrap up, I want to come to the key point of all of what I was saying. You might use the most fancy graphic editing software. You might be using the best PowerPoint templates or the poster templates. But in the end, it's all about you and your audience. Your audience is the king. They have come to listen to you. And it's your job to make them listen to you and be interested in what you're presenting. So as this comic strip, a very popular one, PhD Comics depicts, you could be ready for your talk with all the tangible materials, the laptop, the laser pointer, your microphone and everything. But if you are not ready for it, which comes from practice, it's as good as a bad presentation. So thank you, all the best for your presentations. You can find how to contact us through different social media channels and our website on the screen. I'll be happy to take any questions after the end of the next session as well, which is on CV and networking. Thank you. Thank you for being a patient audience.
Thank you, Hina, for that wonderful presentation, fantastic presentation. And we now, I think, have a very comprehensive list of what we shouldn't be doing in our presentations and in our posters. I would invite our attendees to drop the questions that they have for Hina in the question box. You can type them out in the question box. And now I would like to invite my colleague Yukti, who is the Communications and Public Engagement Officer at India Alliance, to take the next session, which where we will discuss about crafting an effective CV and also how would you want to network during a conference. Over to you, Yukti.
Thank you so much, Banya. Hello, everyone. I hope you are having a good learning experience at this workshop. I hope you enjoyed the morning session as well as Hina's talk today. So this brings us to the last learning session of today's workshop, and then we'll jump on to our career talks. So before moving forward, I'll quickly talk about the session. So we will be learning about CV, how to draft an impactful CV, and some professional learning networking skills. So this CV is different from what we are pro at doing, Control C, Control V, and I'll come to what that is. But before that, so now you know how to structure your manuscript according to an IMRAD format, how to respond to the peer reviewers, editors. You know how to ethically do research, communicate your work, and also you've just learned how to give an impactful oral as well as a poster presentation. So you are all set, and you have acquired all the technical and soft skills. What you have to do next is apply for a job. So when you think about applying for a job, what you need to have in handy is a good and an impactful CV. So we'll now learn how to draft a good CV. So these are the two terms that we have been using interchangeably, often and not, CV and resume. So the purpose of the two documents is actually to get you an interview for a job, but the major difference lies in the layout, the length of these documents, and of course where do you want to apply for the job. So CV on one hand is a very detailed document that provides your academic details as well as your co-curricular interest. On the other hand, resume is a very short, crisp document that where you use each and every word, you double think, and then you put that word in your resume. We'll talk in details about the formats, but before that, let's learn what a CV is. So CV, all in all, is your first impression. It talks about you at your back. So you really need to give the right reflection of yours when somebody is going through your CV. It's a chronological document that is an ever evolving document, and you should be in a habit of updating your CV once in 2 months or maximum of 3 months time. So a CV gives away your academic details starting from high school till your PhD or postdoc, or even if you're a faculty somewhere. And also it talks about your professional accomplishments. So you use CV when you apply, you actually start using CV when you apply for a PhD position, when you apply for a postdoctoral position, when you apply for a faculty position, be it at a national or an international university. You really need to have an impactful CV. And also you need it when you apply for a research job in a government lab. And lastly, you need it when you start writing for fellowships, grants, awards. You need to have an updated CV. So CV, apart from talking about your professional accomplishments, academic journey, it also gives the details of your co-curricular interest, which is a very important section in your CV. So some people say that, yeah, kuch bhi dal do in the co-curricular interest, how does it matter? But I'll quickly highlight that the employer or the potential supervisor, what they really are trying to gauge from this section is whether you have skills like leadership skills, whether you are a good team player, whether you can multitask or not. So these are the sort of things that are being reflected from this section on co-curricular interest on your CV. And also apart from the academic details and co-curricular interest, you also talk about the technical skills that you have acquired over time through CV. So a good CV is essentially one page or a maximum 2-page long document. So we'll quickly see what are the really important things that you need to include in your CV. You start from the personal data, give away your name, address, mobile number, your email address, and also prefer to add an alternate email address in your CV, just in case an email lands up in your spam folder. The person can contact you using that alternate email ID. Give away your background, give your birth year, your nationality. Marital status is not that important. Then comes a really important section, which is your work experience. So it again needs to be in a chronological order. You start from the latest, and a CV's heart lies here, which is the academic details. Be it or not, people are trying to judge you through the percentage of marks that you have obtained in your high school, in your undergraduation, post graduation. So basically what you have to include here, try to create a table under this academic details section. You can have one column for passing year, a board that you had appeared. This is about your high school details, the percentage that you obtained, and finally the school's name. Subsequently, you talk about your undergraduation data. You give away your college name, passing year. You give away the percentage that you had obtained. Subsequently, you give away your post graduation details, and lastly your PhD details, and your postdoctoral experience comes under the work experience. So when we talk about a good CV, apart from the academic details, you can also focus on your personal achievements. For example, if I was a gold medalist in my college, then I can highlight that I was awarded gold medal in my undergraduation and post graduation. Make sure that the information that you are highlighting in your CV are very significant, and you need not really talk about that, okay, I was a class monitor in high school. So that really doesn't make any sense. So these have to be very, very specific achievements of yours that needs to be reflected in the CV. And in an academic CV, a very important section is the publication. So you enlist all the publications, whether they are out, they are published, whether they are under preparation or under review. You can highlight the status under in brackets after you give away the details of the research project that is to be published. Then these were about the academic details. You then focus also on the non-academic details that I was talking about. You talk about the different languages that you have a hold on. You rate yourself whether you can write Spanish or you can read German. You can give away all those details under the language skills. And this again, like I was mentioning, this is a very important section that people look forward to. IT knowledge and technical skills. You give away the information. You talk about the skills that you have acquired, whether you know Python, whether you know whatever computer languages that you are an expert. Give away the details under this section. Okay, you can also talk about that I am an expert in setting up a confocal microscope, or I am an expert in aligning the lasers, or I am an expert in handling the electron microscope. So these are the sort of technical skills that you have acquired during your academic training, and all of that needs to come under this section. Try to keep it one page long document, but just in case you are applying for a postdoctoral position, for example, you have to give away more details, and if at all it has to be long, make sure that it does not exceed more than 2 pages. So if it's a 2 page long CV, apart from all the details that I have already shared with you, what you need to highlight is what are the different conferences and workshops that you had attended, whether at that conference you have given a poster presentation, whether you have given a poster presentation or an oral presentation, were you awarded for those presentations. All those details need to come under this section. And also talk about the different scientific outreach activities maybe that you were a part of. You were training students outside your lab, you were giving a public lecture somewhere. All of those things needs to come in the extra co-curricular activities section of your CV. If it's an academic CV, make sure that right after the personal data and background, before the work experience, you should have a section on research objective. You should talk about your research objective in not more than 20 words. For example, I am a materials chemist and I'm working in the area of solar battery. My research objective was in my CV, crafting inorganic materials that can efficiently capture and store sun's energy. So you have to give a bit generic topic, not a very detailed sort of an objective. So never miss a research objective in an academic CV. Resume, on the other hand, like I was mentioning, that it's a very crisp and it's a crisp summary of your academic journey so far. It gives away the skill set that you have acquired in a very concise manner, and it's majorly used for non-research positions when you apply for policy regulation, writing, editing, business, law, something that has really nothing to do with the academic training that you have received so far. So when we talk about presentation of your CV, formatting is the key. It is really important. You like I was listening to Hina's talk. She talked about how do you format a poster. A lot of rules apply to this crafting the CV process as well. So she mentioned that you need to take a printout of your poster on a white background. I think same can be translated to CV. You have to keep it very simple. You have to leave enough white space that can give your text some breather. So when printing, try not to print the CV on double side, because a lot of key information can be missed when you have a double sided CV. Use bullet points to emphasize on the different skills that you're talking about. You can try to emphasize on more important bits by using bold font in moderation, and always ask your friends, colleagues to double check your CV to avoid any spelling errors. So when I talk about presentation of your CV, formatting is one thing that has to be consistent. You can stick to font size 10 to 12 when you are making your CV. Try to use more readable fonts such as Arial, Geneva, etc. You can try to avoid using fancy formatting features. Those are good for invitation cards, etc., but certainly not for CVs. This is really important. So you have to target your CV to that job, to that company, to that lab where you are applying for. Make sure that when you are applying for a position in a research industry, you look at what the job profile is and accordingly align your CV. Likewise, when you are applying for a postdoctoral position outside, make sure that you focus on the areas of your PhD which aligns well with the research that is being done in that lab. And it need not be that it's a synthesis lab and you are talking about that, okay, I'm an expert in an NMR, although the things are linked. But look at what are the why are you really applying to that particular lab. Is it that you want to do this sort of a synthesis in that lab? Then align your CV accordingly. Try to use short and concise sentences like I had mentioned. Otherwise, people are really, they do not have time to extract the information that is embedded in those long sentences. And always consider your audience, be it when you are preparing for a poster and an oral presentation, or when you are crafting a CV. You have to keep your audience in mind. You cannot really apply to an industry and focus on the workshops that you were a part of. They really have nothing to do with that. These are the that you had presented a poster at a conference, be it a national or an international conference. What they have to do is they have to look at the skill set that you have. So focus more on the skill set. So these are the sort of alterations that you need to do in that document before you start applying and before you start crafting your CV. So this is somebody's CV where this person has sectioned, this is the section on co-curricular activities. She has used bullet points, which is good. She has used bold in moderation, which is good. But still, I think this section can be made better, as a lot of this information looks cluttered to me. So tables always look neat. So you can always segregate the information, put it in the form of a table, and use those tables in your CV. I think giving this information, this structure, makes a lot more sense. You right away look at the program, look at the job the person had did, where was it, when was it, all of that is very nicely put up in this table. So I'll quickly talk about one or two examples of some good CV. So this is a CV by Mr. Amit Chopra. I have taken this randomly from Google. So what I would want you to see first of all is that the categorization is very neat. The sections are clearly differentiated. So you can see that there's a section that starts from education, then the person focuses on work experience. So this is the format of a longer CV. This is a 2-page long CV. CV. This is just the first page. You can see that the headings are very clear. The person has stick to a formatting style where all the dates are in one single line, and this is the sort of formatting that I was talking about, there's a lot of white space, which makes the text more readable. There's a lot of breathing space, and it's always good to, you know, show and talk about the information in the form of bullet points, as you can emphasize on your key skills, responsibilities using these bullet points. Otherwise, when you have long paragraphs, there's a very high tendency for you to miss upon that the applicants, I should say, applicants information. So when you have to like fit in a lot of information in one page CV, what you can do is try to reduce the margin width. You can see here there's a lot of white space. You can reduce the margin width, as I know from my little experience, a lot of people do request for you to submit a page long CV. So you can reduce the margin. You need to stick to a formatting style. Again, although the margin has been reduced, but still it's a very neat and crisp document, where the formatting is a particular template is being used. The very intelligent way of putting in a lot of information here is to reduce the margin and also club a few sections. So if you can see that this person has clubbed sections like languages and IT knowledge, awards and interests. So this is something, this is the strategy that you can also adopt to fit in a lot of information uh, in a smaller space. So it's always really a good practice to basically accompany your CV with a good covering letter. So precise, well formatted, simple cover letter increases your chances of landing the interview and getting the job. And your goal is to stand out amongst all the other applicants. So a cover letter is nothing but, you on a white paper, you have 3 paragraphs. The first paragraph talks about why are you writing, why are you really applying for this job, or like you can talk about the motivation for this job. The second paragraph talks about your skill set, your work experience. The third paragraph, you need to align the two things and explain it to the employer that what is it that you have to offer basically. So I'll quickly get into the detail of a good cover letter, which need not be more than 1 page long. It has to be in a business letter style. You never should beg to state anything. Make sure that it's written in a professional way. You talk about, you highlight a lot of professional content there. uh, this is very important, that you should make an effort to find out who is going to receive your CV and cover letter in the organization. When you are applying for a postdoctoral position, you know that this is the supervisor and you need to address that to that supervisor. Even while you are crafting a cover letter, while responding to the editor or reviewers of a journal, you address it to the editor. Likewise, when you apply for a non academic position, you need to find out who's going to read your cover letter and address it to that specific individual. Name the job that you are applying for, whether it's a job of a science communicator, science policy maker, postdoctoral position, assistant professor. You need to name that job. Provide your short intro, what you were doing, what you did, what you are doing, and what you want to do. And these are a few things that you should have set. The answers of these questions should be set in your head while you appear for the interview, and also when you are like drafting your cover letter. Why did you apply for this job? Why are you perfect? Why should we hire you? And what are your aspirations? Then you also need to talk about your hobbies and interest, and your role models maybe, and a very short and crisp closing that I look forward to hearing from you soon. And you really need not be sincerely anybody's. I remain forever your humble servant. Try to avoid these sentences. Uh, Make sure that, again, for both CV and cover letter, ask your friends to help you out, proofread these documents. Try to avoid any spelling or grammatical errors, as these are a big turn off. So quickly summarizing what we just discussed, make sure that your cover letter is professional, and if you have any mutual contact at that that organization or at that in that industry or company, you need to mention that in your cover letter as that really helps. And sell or market yourself, don't oversell yourself. Try to make it simple. Try not to sound like a machine or use abbreviations or use sentences like please find attached my resume. This is a big no. A quick cover letter facts. So make sure that you do not put any false information on your resume, CV, or cover letter. Always address it to a particular individual in the company. Make sure that the email address that you are using to send the CV and cover letter, those are professionally sounding email addresses, and so it can be first name dot last name, or you can have some numerics here. And certainly no fancy sounding email addresses like happyfeet@gmail.com or hellokitty@gmail.com. Try to avoid using such email addresses. And whenever you are attaching any document with the email, make sure that it is named properly. So you can have last name underscore first name underscore document name and then the year. And this is about till you appear for the interview. What happens, how to prepare yourself when you are going for an interview. So maybe a couple of slides on that will help you polish these skills as well. Certainly dress code is a big thing. So first impression is the last impression. So first impression comes from your dress code, the language that you use, and your posture, behavior. So you have to wear professional clothes. You cannot really go for an interview in pajamas and t-shirts. And all be it or not, if you have a fluent English or not, that doesn't really matter. What matters is how you interact with the panel. The pitch that you use, it need not be you need not be very loud, neither do you have to be very feeble or shy. You have to be you have to maintain that right balance. And try to read a lot about the company or the organization to which you are applying. Do your homework before you go there. Try not to oversell yourself. Be as truthful as possible. You can focus a lot on on your successes, on your accomplishments, but you can also highlight some of your limitations. Maybe that, okay, you are a short tempered person, so you would not want to work in a very big team. So that will really help you make your life easy. Get directly to the point. Don't try to meander your way when you are answering any of the questions. If you don't know, try that you don't know, and maybe you can read it up and get back to them later on if required. And try to mirror the interview, so adopting to the body language of the interviewer rather than copying them exactly. So this method is used to establish coherence between you and your interviewer. So I'll list a few favorite interview questions. Maybe you can have your answers ready before you appear for an interview at any organization or at any industry. So the favorite question is, tell me about yourself. What do you want? Why do you want to get into this field? In case you are changing fields, then you really need to have a very solid answer. What are your short and long term goals? What are your biggest achievements and disappointments? Where do you see yourself in 3 years or 5 years or 10 years from now? Why should we hire you and not somebody else? What if you don't get this job? What is the plan B? So these are some of the favorite interviewer questions which you need to have handy before you go out before you go for an interview. Quite often and lot, we who are from the academic background, we generally like attend a lot of conferences and workshops, and am very fresh out of the lab, and I remember my experiences at the conference. When we talk about conference, what we think about is okay, there is this fancy place that we are going to visit. I always used to think about the high tea snacks that were to be served at the conference, and of course the food free goodies, the notepads, the pens that we used to get there, and of course the t-shirts. So I think let's let's see how we can make make the most of these conferences apart from the free goodies. So this is something that we are not trained to do, and we are not told to do, but this is something that we should be proactively doing, which is professional networking. So I know a lot of my friends and me myself, we were very shy to go introduce ourselves to the people who were present at the conference, who could be a potential postdoc supervisor or a PhD supervisor or a potential collaborator. So what we really need to do is come out of that comfort zone, meet people, don't hang out with your friends, try to meet as many new people as possible and build that strong network. This is really going to help you in future. So if you are presenting a poster or giving a oral or a poster presentation, what you can simply do is uh, uh, if a potential collaborator is there or a potential postdoctoral supervisor is there, just go to them, introduce yourself, introduce your work, your supervisor. Maybe start by talking about their work, talking about how you have been following their work by reading their papers, and then invite them to your talk, be it poster or a oral presentation. Tell them that this is the room where I'm going to talk about this work. Please do come and attend my talk, and then I need to follow up with you. Maybe we can collaborate on this project. And but before you take this step, make sure that you have done your homework while you are introducing yourself to that person of interest. Make sure that you have prior knowledge of the research area of that person. And then this is not happening these days, but we are doing virtual tea and coffee breaks these days. There used to be mixers, poster sessions. So you need to efficiently use these platforms to build that professional network. As you might be stuck in a project somewhere, and you are stuck because there is the required instrument is not there in your institution, and you can simply create that bond and send your sample to that person, and you can collaborate like that. So I have been noticing this is a very common practice outside India, but in India people are generally reserved. But I would request you to come out of that comfort zone, go talk to new people, make new bonds. This will really be helpful in your academic career. So whenever you come back from the conference or the workshop, and you need to stay in touch with the person of interest, drop them an email not later than a week. So make sure that your email ID is fixed in their inbox. And these days webinars are very common. We are all engaging through virtual platforms. So I think what you can do when you are planning to participate at a conference, you can join 15 minutes prior to the scheduled time. A lot of times the speakers are they are present at the networking platforms. You can interact with them, ask questions, indulge in meet and greet. And after the session ends, maybe you can try to stay back for an informal discussion, because it's not that the session is over and the person is going to end the session right away. So you have some buffer time before and after, which you can utilize to network. So these are the key takeaways. Write simply and logically, be clear about your abilities, about your shortcomings, be positive in the end, and you will be landing a good job. So good luck with your jobs and careers. Thank you.
Thank you, Yukti, again for a wonderful session. And also, I think most of your tips will help our audience to swim through when they are looking for jobs and are looking for networking at conferences. Can I also invite Hina now so that we can take a few questions from the audience? And I would request our audience to also drop their questions in the question box so that we can go through them, go through these questions one by one. So the first question is for Hina. Is it necessary to add references at the end of your presentation or credits at the end of your presentation?
If you talk about references, since your presentation is going to keep moving, It's always a good idea to add the reference at the bottom of the slide as a small fine text at the bottom. So if somebody really wants to go back and check what you're presenting, they can go back. And I would not suggest you to add those references at the end of the presentation, because the audience, unlike a research paper, in case of your presentation, doesn't have the option of going back to that particular piece of information and checking and matching those references. If it's about acknowledgements, definitely at the end of the presentation, but if it's references, then on the same slide.
Thank you, Hina. The next one is for Yuti. What if I don't have a certificate for a relevant task that I did in the past? Should I still mention it in my CV or resume?
I think it's a good idea to include that in your CV, provided it's a significant task and an achievement. If you don't have a certificate, you would have some learnings from that program, or you would have some resource material from that program that can really come in handy at that time. So if it's a significant participation, then I think it should be included.
Great, thank you, Yukti. We can take a question for Hina now. Hina, can you just elaborate a little more on the use of visuals in an oral presentation? Also, can using a lot of animation, a lot of visuals lead to a bad presentation? What are your views on it?
I think there's only one rule here, that excess of anything is bad. So you want to use visuals in a visual presentation, but it should not be completely visuals or animations and no text. So you need to strike the right balance, and that of course comes with practice and the mock presentation that you hold with your peers. So they would be able to judge whether the balance is correct or not. Again, with the use of animations, this was again a joke in our college time. So you don't want every piece of text jumping onto the slide. So you want animations because you don't want your presentation to look monotonous and one slide after the other. So use them again judiciously. You don't want everything to come, and especially with animations also, you can use the simple ones like the fading ones, or the text appears and fades, and not the ones where the text is moving in circles or jumping on the screen. So again, judicious use of anything, the visuals, animations.
So there's one question, Hina, that maybe you can answer with this. Our audience wants to know what can be some of the best apps to use while making a poster.
Okay, so this would come from my PhD experience. I used to see a lot of people, if you want something very simple that you're already very familiar with, PowerPoint is the go-to place. Everybody has it on their laptops and systems as a part of the Microsoft Office package. It's very intuitive and you know all the tools and all of that. But if you want to go become a little more sophisticated within the same family of softwares, you have Microsoft Publisher. I used to use it because it helps with aligning things and the grids and the margins, and you can work everything to the last measurement, what you want in the real life. If you again want to go into more specialized softwares, you can go to the Adobe suite of softwares. You have InDesign, which is perfect for flyers, posters, and brochures. But then it requires, of course, specialized knowledge and skills with the software as well. And it is paid. So you need to take that into account if you're a student. Something that lies between these two ends is open source softwares, which are more sophisticated and give you better options in terms of graphics. So this could be in Inkscape, which is a good, it is more known for being a vector graphics software, but you can create posters as well. And I'm sure this is not an exhaustive list. Google, of course, can help you.
Thank you, Hina. We have a question on networking, and Yukti can take this. How do we network in virtual sessions? Many of the webinars do not allow networking at all. So how can it be done in maybe virtual conferences, in virtual sessions?
That's a really good question. So there are a couple of things that you can do. One thing is that most of the workshop sessions, there is a feature to enable chat. So if you can find out, if you can send personal messages, maybe that is one thing that you can make use of. Second is, like I was mentioning, that you can join before time or stay after the session ends. There is this buffer space where you can really reach out to the potential collaborator or the person of interest and request them to stay back, or just share your email ID with them and tell them that you are going that you are really interested in discussing your work with that person of interest, and you will be dropping them an email right after the session. So these are a couple of opportunities that you really need to make use of. Also, I've observed that there are some fancy workshop conference softwares that are available these days, where you have a separate virtual networking tables that are set up. So maybe try to look out for those virtual networking tables, go and interact with different people that are actually trying to network in those virtual on those virtual platforms. So you need to find out that if it's not there, then use the the chat option. If the chat option is also not there, then drop them an email right after their session. These are the three opportunities that you have.
Thank you, Yukti. Hina, a very important question here. How should I manage public speaking anxiety? And any tips that you may have for non-English speakers on how they should prepare for an oral presentation? I think we can link both these questions together.
Um, I think, okay, so this is, I should have expected this question. Yeah, so with anxiety, one thing I think the most important is to remember that it is natural. It is not a lot of people go through it. Every one of us goes through it. Only the degree matters, because some of us have got into the practice and some haven't. So to remember that, not to be guilty of it and increase that anxiety. And then you can of course manage your anxiety well by practicing in front of your peers. They can always help you with where you're going wrong, what you can do to manage something that is going wrong during the presentation. And again, remember that your audience is not always sitting there to judge you. They are empathetic people. So always assume that they will be okay with a little bit of goof up and all of that. So I think, first of all, if you have anxiety, don't become anxious about that anxiety. And remember that it's natural. Even the best public speakers in the world do have that stage fear before they come to the mic. Practice is key to everything. So it'll help you. And about non-native or non-English speakers talking to an audience that understands only English. If I talk about the Indian context, uh, I'm sure that most of us are multilingual. So English is not our first language. So you can always, again, be honest about your comfort level with English. So audience, again, would be definitely receptive towards that. You can try your best. Nobody would judge you for the grammar. As far as I know, a good audience would not. And then again, I wanted to make one more point about this. Yeah, for now, I think I would stop there. I think your
Thank
content
you,
would matter
Hina.
more than the anxiety. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Thank you, Hina. Yukti, another question for you. If somebody wants to leave their current PhD position and are looking to apply for labs elsewhere, should the cover letter to the new job state that the person is still employed at a lab and is interested in switching jobs?
Yeah, why not? I think we have to be, like I had mentioned, that we have to be truthful. So the person can mention that he or she is basically taking, they are, this is the lab where they are working on, this is the research project that they are working on, but the research is, the project that they're working on is something that is not really exciting for them, and that's why they want to change the lab and the research area, and hence the country or the city or the state, whatsoever fits in. So I think it's very normal to switch labs, because you are going to invest a lot of your time in in doing PhD. It's not a year or a 2 years long course, so it's completely okay and acceptable to change your research areas. There are a few labs in the there are a few institutions in the country where that provides you an opportunity to rotate the lab, so you spend a week in the different labs that are part of that department, and in the end, after a 6 months course, you get to choose the lab of your choice. But not all the research institutions in the country give you this option. So it's completely okay if you try to explore different research options before investing a lot of your time in that area. Completely acceptable, and you can talk about it in your cover letter.
Yeah, thank you, Yukti. We have a lot of questions pouring in, but we may not have time to take them all. Maybe we can take one last question and wrap up both these sessions and move on to the next leg of our workshop, which is the career talks after a short break. So the last question would be for Hina. Can you just give us a few tips on how to make a 5-minute presentation? If you have got just 5 minutes to make an elevator pitch.
Okay. So again, I would draw from an experience. I was presenting in the final year of my PhD. I was supposed to give a flash talk at a presentation abroad, and we were first told that this would be an 8-minute presentation, so I had prepared accordingly. And then at the last moment, we were told that no, this is going to be a 4-minute presentation. So now, like I mentioned in my presentation also, you would have to extract the juiciest bits out of your content. You don't want to waste time setting context for too long or going on and on about your name, your affiliation, all of that. So that would already be there on the title slide. You can quickly start with, dive straight into what you want to speak. So if you know, so my case was different, but usually if you know in advance that it's going to be a 5-minute presentation, first spend a good amount of time in your preparation on extracting what you totally don't want to miss from the presentation, what you definitely want the audience to take back from the presentation. And from there on, you can start expanding those things to fit into 5 minutes. And then again, practice is the key. So when I had to speak impromptu for a 4-minute talk, I realized later on that a lot of points were missed. So when you keep practicing, you tend to not miss those points. So again, extract those bits, expand them, and then practice a lot. Timing would be the make or break thing here.
Thank you, Hina. And with that, I think we have come to the end of both these sessions on presentation skills, CV, and networking. We can take a 5-minute break and then move on to the career talks. So all of us need a screen break now. So let's just meet maybe at 4:05 in 5 minutes. I mean, that's, I think, 7 minutes, but that's okay, I think.
From here, welcome back everyone. We hope that we did not overload you with a lot of information. So that was the last session, learning session of the workshop, and thank you for being such an engaging audience. And we will now move on to the first career talk for the day, which will be delivered by Dr. Roopjyoti Talukdar. Dr. Roopjyoti is currently working as a clinical pancreatologist and scientist at the Asian Institute of Gastroenterology and Asian Healthcare Foundation, Hyderabad. He completed his post-graduation in internal medicine from Guwahati Medical College in 2003, after which he did his senior residency in gastroenterology at Pushpavati Singhania Research Institute in New Delhi. In early 2007, he joined the University of Minnesota, Minneapolis, USA, as a postdoctoral research associate, and he returned to India in December 2010 and started working in Asia Institute of Gastroenterology, Hyderabad. He is involved in active patient care along with clinical and basic research in pancreatic diseases and has published extensively in reputed international and national scientific journals. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Roopjyoti, who will take us through his professional and educational journey and will provide a glimpse into the life of a scientist and what it takes to become one. So with that, over to you, Roop.
Hi, Yukti. Thank you. So can you make me the presenter?
Sure, sure.
Yeah. So I have to click on show my screen, I guess.
That's right. Yes.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see. You just need to go on the full screen
And
mode.
okay,
Yeah,
okay,
perfect.
great. So a very good afternoon to all the audience, and thanks for organizing this beautiful meeting, Yukti, Bania, Hina, and the whole India Alliance team. So the title, if you see a doctor turned scientist gutsy journey, I mean, it looks very fancy, but I think, and it looks as if I am the hero. Initially, I was a doctor, then I became a scientist. But any one of you, the audience, can be a part of this story, or your name can come here in the screen or a talk like this. So if you remember, Hina had said sometimes there can be glitches when you give a talk. Things doesn't work as you want. And same thing happened with me. My webcam actually decided not to work today. I don't know why. So this is how I look when I don't give a talk in a conference. Otherwise, you would see me in a suit or tie or whatever, right? So in the next 20 minutes or so, what I'll be doing is I'll take you through my career path, how I ended up becoming a scientist, and then what I learned. That is more important. Becoming a scientist is fine. All of you can pursue and become, but what I learned all these years, 10, 15 years of my research career, academic career, and I'd like to share some of those what I would like to see in a student or in an upcoming scientist. So this is my OPD, and I don't know, it stopped working. So this is where I get my professional satisfaction. And what do I mean by that? When I see patients and I prescribe them medication, give them different treatment, they go with a smiling face, they are happy. So that is professional satisfaction. And then, as Yukti had already said, that I also do some basic science work, and this is the institute, the AIG hospitals, and the far end of the building is the research block, and this is my research lab where I have some very talented scientists working with me, and this is where I get intellectual satisfaction. But why do I need to have two places or run here and there for professional satisfaction, somewhere for intellectual satisfaction? Somewhere. So that is where the story of my research began. Briefly, I guess majority of the audience are biologists. So, and all of you are aware of the pancreas. So I work in the organ called pancreas, which secretes digestive juices and insulin and other hormones. So this is the area of my interest, and this is the pancreas, how it looks like just behind the stomach. This is how it looks like in the abdominal cavity, and this is how it looks like on a CT scan. And the three most important disease of this organ called pancreas are acute pancreatitis, where the pancreas gets inflamed acutely, rapid onset, severe pain, inflammation. Then it may progress to chronic pancreatitis, where there will be lots of fibrosis and that leads to pain. And then, of course, there will be pancreatic cancer. And I'm sure many of you are aware of these terms, right? So if we talk about acute pancreatitis, so basically I asked you myself a question: why do I have to crave for dual satisfaction? So in the clinic, I get all the satisfaction by treating the patient, they feel happy. But then the problem is, this disease actually was reported way back in history, from Alexander to Beethoven, and 150 years back, this scientist called Hans Kayari, he was an Austrian pathologist, who described that pancreatitis is autodigestion of the pancreas. The digestive juice digests the pancreas by itself. Unfortunately, we do not have a treatment for that disease now. The satisfaction that I get in the patient in the ward or in the OPD is just by giving them palliative relief, just by relieving them of their pain. But we cannot cure the disease proper even now. Similarly, chronic pancreatitis is a disease with intractable pain, and whatever you do, and treat them by endoscopy, by surgery, or to remove the pancreas, still the patient, the major chunk of patient comes back with pain. Our understanding of the biology of pain is still not optimal, and still we cannot give a full cure to this patient. And that's what I don't get satisfied in the clinic, and I have to look for the lab. So how did it all begin? So I'm very proud to say that I come from the Northeast, even though I'm based in Hyderabad now, but I come from Northeast, from the city of Guwahati. And precisely, this is my house in a place called Jew Road. Many of you know that. And this is where I did my early medical education, my MBBS and post-graduation from the Guwahati Medical College. From there, as Yukti had already mentioned, I moved to Delhi to PSRI to do my senior residency in gastroenterology. There are many other things that happened in between, which I won't go into the microscopic details today because of lack of time. But I had the opportunity to work with Professor Rakesh Tandon. We just lost him 2 months back, and he's a teacher of teachers, one of the doyens in gastroenterology and predominantly in pancreatology, in diseases of the pancreas, and is renowned globally. So what happened one day, actually, after our evening rounds, he just came and spontaneously asked me, "Are you interested in research?" We had been doing some clinical research, and what he meant was basic research. And he said, like, it would be basic research. You won't be able to see patients for a couple of years, but you would like it. Your understanding would increase on pancreatic diseases. And that's the moment I thought, okay, this was the opportunity that I had been waiting for. And without any second thought, I just said yes. And it so happened that after 3 months, I shifted from New Delhi to Minneapolis, United States, and I joined the research lab of Professor Ashok Saluja at the University of Minnesota. And if you see, this is where in the 9th floor of this building, uh, the lab was situated, and we started working there. Now Professor Saluja shifted to Miami with his whole group. So what happened that time, I was a pure clinician. Even though I had some idea about what a PCR is, what a Western blot is, what experimental work is, what a Petri dish is, what are media, those are just what I read in books or articles, but I had no idea about how to go about it, how to do it. So I was a pure clinician. And then the first 6 months, I had to go through a grilling learning curve, understanding the basics of all these lab techniques, because without understanding the techniques, you cannot go into do the experiments. So I had to learn all the basic lab techniques, and that was a grilling 6 months. And at the end, I learned lots of things. And that's why I always tell my students, even after passing out my clinical medicine and doing a senior residency, if I had opted not to do a senior residency, probably I would have been a full-time practitioner. I could have practiced and had a well-established life. So even at that age and stage of my career, if I can learn new things, I think anyone can do that. And the audience, I guess all of you are very young, either into the PhD program or postdoc or maybe early faculty. So it's very easy for all of you to learn new techniques. So we as humans are very malleable, and we can be molded into a system. Only thing is that we need some motivation and some urge to get molded in a system. And as Professor Tandon has rightly said, I'll not be seeing patients for a couple of years. And actually, I had to be friends with the mice in the labs, and I was fortunate enough to join a very cosmopolitan group. And if you can see me there, I used to have a mustache at that time, 2007-8. And it was a very cosmopolitan group, people from all over the world practically. And it's important to work in a cosmopolitan group. That's what I learned. And by cosmopolitan, I'm not meaning that it has to be an international group. Even if you're working in India, you should be able to interact and work with people from different states, different labs, and that helps you in becoming a better person. And I'll come to that a little bit later, more about this. So this is where I worked, and in that process of 2.5 years, we could publish 2 important papers, which actually challenged some old views of acute pancreatitis, how it happens, the early pathogenesis, and that was published in 2 reputed journal, gastroenterology. And then what happens after that is, I was still a clinician at heart. So I had to pursue clinical training. So I thought, since I was in US, why not try something clinical also? Then I always wanted to come back to India and work in India. I never had any aspirations to settle abroad and work there. I knew, I realized that there are enough problems that we need to settle in the medical arena in the Indian context. So I tried for this advanced GI pancreatology fellowship at the Mayo Clinic. And in fact, that time Mayo Clinic was the only institute in the world that offered a one-year pancreas fellowship. That was very competitive, and my basic science work in Professor Saluja's lab gave me a great edge in getting through this fellowship. And I work with these two people, again, Professor Shanti Vegan, Professor Suresh Chari, again, doyens of acute and chronic pancreatitis. And Chari also works in pancreatic cancer, and they are one of the leaders of the world in pancreatic diseases. So it was my fortune that I could join this institute and get a hang of how pancreatology looks like in depth, because that 1 year I was seeing only patients with pancreas. I was doing clinical research on pancreas. So what happens after that? So yeah, that was this is called the Gonda building, and this was the floor. Exactly, this was the room where I worked. And then after a short stint, I came back to India for a short time, and then I joined. I moved to Sydney, Australia, University of New South Wales, where I worked with Professor Minuti Apte. Again, I talked about chronic pancreatitis. There is fibrosis, and the cells that drive fibrosis and inflammation are the pancreatic stellate cells. And Professor Minuti Apte was the first person to identify, isolate, and characterize stellate cells. So she is still the global leader in pancreatic stellate cell biology. And that is where why I went to her lab, spent some time and learned how to isolate the stellate cell and do few experiments with it. So again, actually, I went back to the basic science for a short while, and then finally I came back to India and I settled in Hyderabad. I started working at the AIG, Asian Institute of Gastroenterology. And this is the clinical building. This is the research building where I moved to and fro in my search for professional and intellectual satisfaction. So now let's talk a little bit about clinical research. So my contention, my goal is to integrate the clinic into the lab. Whatever I learned in USA or whatever I worked in the USA was on animal models. It was mouse, rat, cell cultures. But all the time, these may not be necessarily be applicable to the patients, because patients have a different biology, different immunology. So my problem arises in the clinic, where the patient has acute pancreatitis and they have all sorts of inflammation. And as I had said, even though I feel happy by giving the patient some treatment and they give me a good thank you, they sometimes from Assam, they might bring some small mementos and tea bags. Assam is famous for tea, all of you know that. But then the heart of the problem is the incidence of this disease is still increasing. Still 40% of the people would die, and still we do not have any ideal predictors. We cannot predict that, okay, this particular patient will develop severe disease after 7 days or 10 days. As I had already said, there are no definitive treatment. And the reason is we do not still know how the initial injury happens in the pancreas and how that injury leads to inflammation. And it is the inflammation that kills the patient. Right, so that is where we started using human samples in our lab at AIG, and started working how this acinar injury, pancreatic injury happens, and how the early cytokine causes more pancreatic injury and kills the patient. So two most common causes of pancreatitis is heavy alcohol drinking and stones in the bile duct. So we had elucidated the early mechanism and how it relates to the systemic inflammation and mortality of the patient. We had looked into what increases the susceptibility of infection in this patient. We had looked into gut barrier and shift of toxins from the intestine to the blood circulation. So this is what I would like to say, integrating. So the clinical problem arises in the clinic, and then we can take it to the lab to elucidate the mechanism. And the answers that we have now paved pathways for finding out new therapeutic modalities. So that is what translational research is all about. The problem begins in the clinic, we try to solve it in the lab, and then we carry over or give the patient that results again back in the clinic. So I'd love to call it like clinic or bedside to the lab to the bedside. So the same thing happens with chronic pancreatitis. A patient having recurrent acute pancreatitis goes on to develop fibrosis. If you remember, Minotti updates lab stellate cells. The stellate cells get activated and they produce lots of inflammation and lays down fibrosis. So what the patients suffer is chronic pain. They have, because the pancreas gets damaged, they are not producing digestive juices anymore. So they'll have lots of malnutrition. And again, most of you know that the pancreas secretes insulin. So if there is insulin secretion is reduced or the endocrine part is dysfunctional, patient goes on to develop diabetes. So on this aspect, again, we are looking at how diabetes happens. Again, the inflammatory pathways. And then we are looking at the microbiome, how the microbiome, this is something very new that has not been shown earlier in the context of chronic pancreatitis and diabetes. So we could show for the first time how the microbiome can be responsible or can contribute to the development of diabetes. And then we are working on the pain, why the pain happens. Is it only the disease, or are there any psychological aspect also involved? Is the coping capability of the patients are also changed? So we are looking at different magnetic resonance spectroscopy and taking patient sample to look at the metabolome and then trying to correlate to the metabolome microbiome. So all these are my ways, or all these are methods to find out a solution to the clinical problem. So there has to be an integration of a problem, clinical problem, with the lab. And whoever in the audience are planning to do any kind of translational research, I don't know if there are any doctors here, but even if you're basic scientists, if you're PhDs on postdocs, it's very important to integrate with a broader group, and rather than working in a single problem or a single solution. You may get good papers, you may get great papers by looking at the cell process, but if we cannot apply that to the betterment of humankind, then probably that may not be as satisfying as it would be otherwise. So then once I started working in the lab, so I had a lab to run now, I started recruiting people, and now I started learning newer things. So that's why I make the title of this, that is renewed learning. Now, earlier I used to be a student, but now I'm still a student. I still learn from my students, from the environment, from my patients, but at the same time, I'm a supervisor, and I have to face a lab environment, which composes of students, supervisors, technical issues, other lab staff. So as a supervisor, what I'd like look for in my student, there are several points, and this is not only me. Any supervisor would like their students to have keen observation, curiosity. They have to be a thinker, analytical, and there's a long list. So when I talk about observation, again, it's not just seeing. That's what I try to do, and I try to inculcate that in my students and whomever I talk to. You have to learn to observe. Just seeing is not enough. What is beyond what you see? So looking beyond what I see is my dictum. Try to read between the lines and then try to interpret in a more sensible and scientific manner. Again, should be a clarity of thinking. I think Hina and others have also talked about the clarity of thinking during our presentation. So that has also to be extrapolated in your research. When you formulate a research question, the clarity has to be clarity is very important, and for that you have to have some knowledge, background knowledge, and from experience, and that would come if you keep on reading before you formulate a study design or study protocol. There has to be lots of studying and reading of important papers that would help you shape your study design. The other important thing that I always think about is quantitative thinking. It's just not more than, less than, maybe. It has to be objective. There has to be objectivity to your thinking, to your plan. And that's the only way you can have an objective result and results that you can extrapolate in a quantitative manner. And finally, holistic thinking. All of you know the story of this elephant and the blind people. So I can understand at this stage of your career, when you are a postdoc or a PhD, it would be difficult to think holistically or work holistically. At this point, you'd be working on a particular aspect of a problem that your supervisor would ask you to do. But thinking holistically, you can think holistically. You can think of a bigger problem out of which a small issue you are looking at. That is very important. And this is, I think, an example of holistic thinking. So in our research group, that is how we work. We look at the whole pancreas biology of acute and chronic. So if you see different people are working in different areas of the single problem, acute pancreatitis, how it leads to inflammation and how the patient gets severe disease. If you please let me know when I can stop. I think I have already crossed 20 minutes. I have 2 or 3 more slides left.
Sure, you can conclude in 2 minutes, Roop.
Okay, sure. And this is the same thing that we do for chronic pancreatitis. Again, we are looking fundamentally at diabetes, pain, but different people are working in different areas in this thing. And this is all about teamwork. A single person cannot do so. So there is nothing like I in research. It's always we. So this is my current basic research team, like fully empowered, highly motivated, all girls group, and I'm very proud to have them in my lab. And all these red people here are the clinical guys who works with me in the different projects. So it's all about us. The original idea may come from a single person, but the implementation, it has to be a we. And again, this is something which I called the climbing the stairs of academia. So this is a constant learning process. We come from the SSC to becoming a faculty, and then wisdom is actually a constant process. So if someone like just after completing the PhD feels, okay, now I know everything, I can do everything, I think that is the first moment of his or her stepping down. Wisdom is a constant process which can be enhanced by experience, knowledge, and good sense of judgment, which can be achieved by all this. If you remember this slide again, if a keen observation, curiosity, thinking, analytical commitment, so all this will enhance this experience, and you can bring your wisdom towards becoming more wise earlier in life. And the other thing is important, not to be like a frog in the well. Always we should look for opportunity, and once we have opportunity, sky could be the limit. And there's a good paper in Nature, actually. You should all read The Power of Diversity. It's very important to work with a group, work in diversity, have a cosmopolitan environment. And if we have that, your communication skills improve. You can be better capable of taking criticisms, failures positively. You will have an open mind and you'll be more sympathetic. We all fail in life, but failure should be accepted with positivity. I'll not go into the details of this, but again, if you see Mr. Bean messes up with an experiment, and it happens with us, sometimes we fail, we can't figure out, but that's fine. There are always alternatives and other ways to go about it. We need to learn to accept criticism. Like I'll just take a few seconds in describing this thing. So what happened during my post-graduation in Guwahati Medical College? This was my professor. I'm still his student. I still learn a lot from him. So he asked me to write a case report of a patient who has some rare syndrome, and I was very enthusiastic. I wanted to write, but somehow the patient was discharged, and it was my failure to follow him up. And that day I got one of the worst scoldings of my life. No one had scolded me like that before. And that was the day where I started learning about the importance of record keeping and data keeping. So it's very important to take criticisms at times. And finally, it's very important, I think, to be a good human being. What do I define by good human being? Of course, helping others is a good quality. We have to help each other, our peers in the lab. There are lots of negative qualities. If we can stay away from this, is good. It's like being a good human being. But in the context of science and research, I think two most important thing is honesty and transparency. You have to be honest with your data, honest to yourself, honest to your peers, and there should be transparency. I think Yukti also had talked about fruitfulness when you are writing a CV or trying to change your career. So it's important to grow at all stage, but it's also extremely important to help others around you to grow. That's what I have been following, and that's what I try to inculcate in my students all the time. So this is my final slide. So looking back, my life started with curiosity during my college. I won't go into the details of this, but then my earliest lessons and the foundation of research was probably during my post-graduation after I got the scolding from Professor Bhattacharya. I started understanding the importance of data keeping. I had several failures. In a sense, I could not get into some postgraduate or DM seats after my MD at different institutes. I was at All India Institute for a short stint. I was getting a PG seat in a non-clinical subject. I left it, so I was kind of an AIMS dropout. So these were kind of failures, but I never considered that those failures. Those are actually opportunities. So once we fail, we get 10 more opportunities to grow further. And going to US from New Delhi was a calculated risk. I had a backup plan of coming back to join the clinic, and after that it was all opportunity. So what we see was, and what I think everyone should inculcate, this focus is very important. Initially the focus may be wide, but as we go deeper into our career and as we become wiser and wiser with time, the focus becomes more and more sharp, which is important. And as the focus becomes more and more sharp, we tend to get more and more motivated. So initial motivation should be uh, from ourselves. It should be very conscious, but as we go more and more and become more and more focused, it's amazing. Like, you'll be surprised to see that the motivation becomes more and more strong. If we find one solution, there will be 10 more new problems, and that zeal will automatically come to try to solve those problems. But most important is consistency. We have to be consistent in our focus, in our motivation, and that's only and only that will keep us stuck to research and go ahead in the career. So finally, if you want to be this blue suited guy, consistent effort is important. You have to keep on struggling. Failures will be there in life. You have to face it, accept it. Hard work, all this money are actually your data, so hard work is important. And finally, it has to be a teamwork. And I think with all these three mantras, there is no chance that you'll never or you'll not be able to excel in your scientific career. Thank you, and you can reach me at this email ID.
Thank you so much, Roop. This was indeed a very inspiring career trajectory that you shared with us. And the famous quote
Thank
that
you. Thank
failure
you.
is the stepping stone to success fits very well
Very
here.
true. Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah. So with that, we'll take a couple of questions before we call our next speaker. Roop, there is this question for you that how do we choose the right PhD lab? What factors should I consider?
Okay. So dicey question, but first of all, what I have to tell you is it's important to have the right kind of lab, but it's also important to develop yourself and try to mold yourself in a lab. Before fixing a lab, we should not be fixed. I mean, we should not have a preset or preconceived idea. So obviously you would like to choose a lab which aligns to your research work. Now it may happen that you are not very clear what you want to do, but still you'll have to find out an area of interest, which can be from your MSc class, or and once you know that this is my area of interest, you should look for lab people or labs working in that area. Obviously or naturally, you'll find 4 or 5 labs, be it abroad, be it in India, and then you have to talk to those people. If possible, you should try to go and see how the environment is there, what kind of work are there, because seeing is believing. If you go and see there and talk to the people there, you'll get a better sense. Talk to your potential PI or supervisor, and then you can take, and I'm sure that will help you in shortlisting your choices to 2 or 3, and then you can choose which should suit you best, because many times it happens, there are other confounders. Suppose you get a good lab in Delhi and you are based in Assam. You may have some commitments in Assam, you might have to look after a family, or many things might be there, so which might lead you frequent travel or other distractions. So those things should also be considered when you are selecting your final lab, because you won't want to stop your pursuit of or whatever research you are doing in the middle, because that again has its own drawbacks. So these are few of the factors. First of all, you have to find out your scientific problem, what you want to look at, what you want to study. Secondly, you have to look for the right kind of PI who's working in that area. Thirdly, you should also look at what are the future prospects. Suppose you do that study, and would you be able to carry your career forward based on those studies? And finally, what other confounders that could affect your pursuit in your scientific career? So I think these 4 points, if you take care of, you'd be able to get the right lab.
Roop, there is this question in continuation to your answer. Somebody is asking that what should be the priority, a good place or a good guide? What should be given more weightage?
Okay, again, another good question. So first of all, it depends, what do you mean by a good place? So if you think a good place is somewhere where you have all the state-of-the-art infrastructure, but you do not have a very prominent guide, then probably that may not be your choice. But if you have a very prominent person who has published well, prominent, I'm not saying like a celebrity or he comes in like TV or something like that. So if the person is published well, and by published well also, I don't mean that like one paper in Nature and then no paper for 5 years. There has to be consistency, as I had already said, like constant publication in a particular area, trying to go deep into the subject with both width and breadth. So that is the right kind of mentor. And if that mentor doesn't work in a very sophisticated lab, that's fine. He or she will always find a way for you to excel in your career. So I think it's about the definition, and if these two definitions are considered, a mentor is more important.
One quick question before we end this session. What is your mantra to overcome failure in research?
Okay, so let me tell you, most of you must be aware of this technique called EMSA, electrophoretic mobility shift assay, when you want to look at NF-kappa binding to the nuclear domains. Most of you are aware of that. That is a technique which I never succeeded when I was in US, and probably I'll not succeed in that even now. But that was a very important part of my work, which I could not put in my paper. But that's fine. There are other ways. So failure will be there, and I think if someone, and I'm talking about basic research, not clinical research. Clinical research is much easier. You have the clinical data in hand, you do the analysis, and you can publish. But basic science, you have to do the experiments, and there will be failure. And if someone do not fail in basic science, I doubt the credibility of the work. There has to be failure, and that is how that makes you wiser. So if you fail, the first thing, did you do it correctly? Did you do it the experiments right? If you are doing it right, still you can fail, that's fine. There are other ways to answer your question. So that doesn't mean that that is the end of the world and you cannot do that part. So you have to find the alternatives thing. So that is one aspect. And second aspect, I didn't really get what do you mean by failure, but I'd answer it from two aspects. This is one aspect, the experimental aspect. And the second aspect is if you do not get a PhD seat, or if you do not get a postdoc in different places, or if you cannot clear all these CSIR and this kind of, so that also can be a kind of failure in your scientific career. But these are not failures. These things gives you time to think of more opportunities, which may eventually turn out better for you. For example, if I would have got continued my anatomy in All India Institute of Medical Science, or if I would have got into um, rheumatology, which I wanted in PGI Lucknow, or if I did not go to USA to do basic science, leaving my clinic. So there was a calculated risk. So probably I won't have given this talk to you all today. So there is always a second option. there was always an alternative. So one should not break heart and try to find out the other options if you fail in one particular area. So every failure brings you multiple opportunities. So that is my mantra.
Totally can echo your thoughts, Roop. Thank you so very much for joining us today and providing this glimpse of how a day in a clinician scientist's life looks like. So thank you so much, Dr. Roopjyoti Talukdar, for joining us today. On
Thanks,
that
Yukti.
note, I would thank you so much. On that note, I would like to invite our next speaker, Dr. Smita Jain, for the next session. And Smita has a PhD from Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, in the field of cancer biology. So, after exploring industry for a couple of years, she moved into the field of scientific management. With a keen interest in management, ability to communicate, she played a key role in establishing the business and processes at CCamp Bangalore. Smita has also experience of working as a research analyst with digital content organization. Currently, Smita is the executive director of a very well-known platform, India Bioscience, a program that aims to increase the visibility of science in society by being a hub for policy discussion, science communication, and as an aggregator of information. On that note, I would like to invite you, Smita, over to you. Smita, we are not able to hear you.
Can you hear me now? Okay. Okay. Yukti, can you help me with sharing of the slide?
Sure. Give me a second.
Okay. So is it visible?
Yeah, we can see. Can we go on the full screen mode? Yeah, perfect.
Thank you. Okay, so good evening, everyone, and I would like to thank India Alliance for hosting this session. It's a session which is really valuable, and I'm sure each one of you have had a really fruitful day. It's been a long day, and I guess I would not take very long. Very quickly run you through my journey, my key transitions and learnings from the journey so far. And I would also want to talk about some key tools that help in crafting this career journey well, and followed by some diverse opportunities and resources that we have to offer from India Bioscience. Okay, so Professor Talukdar very nicely spoke about his career journey, and we all keep hearing this word career versus job, and it's really important that now that most of you, I understand, in the audience are in their formative years, would step into this long journey that you can actually compare with a long distance marathon run. But what is really important is to understand the difference between a job and a career. And this would make the entire difference to your life. Because a job is something that you just perform in order to, let's say, support your needs or your family or whatever, or earn money. But a career is something which is a long-term professional journey, and that entails a lot of learning at each step, lot of hard work and passion at the end of it, because only then you can say that you've had a successful career, which would keep providing a lot of motivation and happiness at the end of the day. So if one understands this very difference, I guess crafting your own career journey becomes very important. Okay, and another thing which is key is that each one of you must understand that your career is your responsibility, no one else's responsibility. You as an individual are responsible for making it a success. Okay, Professor Talukdar was talking about, a career journey of a researcher, which is important. But in today's world, a lot of things have also changed. Again, here I'm not trying to step into that zone and say that, that's not the path. That's one key path that's there post your degree in science. But what has also happened is something that we must explore. What has happened in recent past, and there are multiple options that have opened up. So we all mostly perceive our career journeys as BSc, MSc, followed by PhD, postdoc, and become a faculty, a researcher or an educator, or both. But is it actually like that? Or is it a mixture, a crisscross, or these journeys just go upwards, are open-ended, and are not linked? So these are certain things that each one of us must keep in mind, that with time in this century, a lot has changed, and we cannot continue to see our career progression in the same manner what we were seeing before. There would be a lot of changes, paths that would shift in this journey. So another really, really key point here is to understand why would you want to do whatever you want to do. That very purpose of doing something is key to success again. And also, when you get this understanding of why, you also need to understand that what do you do and how do you do so that you achieve that why. So here again, this requires a lot of self-contemplation, a lot of thought, and based on this self-analysis, one should decide where one wants to go. Okay, so here I would shift a bit and talk about my own journey that started from Banaras. I come from I would say a typical middle class Indian family, just that I had the opportunity to be in a very open environment. And I had from my childhood, I was interested in biology. So with that interest in biology and passion and hard work that got ingrained due to my teachers, my parents, I started this journey and went on a very traditional path. But let me tell you, on this traditional path, when I was in school and I was studying science, being a topper, the very first instance was that you should become a doctor. This came from my teachers, but I was clear that that's not a zone where I would want to go. And that's where I did my first elimination. Went on to do undergrad from PHU, postgraduate from MS University, Baroda, and then came to IISc to do my PhD in cancer biology. Now here again, post my PhD, this was a second elimination I did. All my batchmates went for a postdoc, but I was not sure if that's the route I want to take. And I did some bit of self-thinking analysis, and I kind of decided not to go to the usual path. Now, till this journey, what did I learn? Let me tell you something. Maybe at that point, I was not sure what I'm actually learning. What are the skills that I've picked up. But the ability to think logically was something that got ingrained again by my teachers at school and my parents at home. PHU taught us to work really hard, if not very smartly, but work hard at that point. And the teachers were motivating enough. So, that curiosity, that zeal to learn more got into me at Banaras Hindu University. Baroda taught us teamwork, multitasking, a lot of decision making, because that's how the course was designed. And definitely while doing my PhD, I became much more courageous because each experiment teaches you to be more courageous, because there are multiple failures, and if you do not take them positively, you cannot continue. And that gave me a lot of courage, resilience, ability to think critically, and definitely to manage time really, really well. So those were the teachings at each step. Then what did I do? the next question that was in front of me was, what's your plan? What do you want to do? Because I decided not to go for a postdoc. And this was a crossroad that I was standing. And I'm sure many of you can also relate that, which way one should go. Okay, so this is where the self-contemplation is really, really important. I did some, I was not still very sure, but I decided to join industry, post my PhD, worked there for 3 years, then moved into CCAMP in the business development and project management role. And followed by 2016 when I joined India Bioscience in a leadership role. Now, again, what were the learnings at each of these steps? Was it that my decision to join industry and work there for 3 years in an R&D role and then switching gears completely into a managerial role in administration management, was it worth it? Yes, I would say it was, because the industry taught me a lot of organizational skills, a lot of professionalism, how to conduct yourself, how to interact, how to network, and things like that. At CCAMP, again, learned a lot of decision making, a lot of management related, skills came through, and definitely I learned and started to grow my network across the country. And at India Bioscience, I've been learning a lot of leadership skills. So why I'm showing this, that each step that you go, there is a lot of thought that gets into it. But even if you have to take a U-turn, let's say I took a U-turn post my R&D stint in the industry, it's not that it goes a waste. There is always a learning, and that experience really, really counts. Okay. Again, how do you plan your career? I guess next couple of slides are really important. I would not spend a lot of time on each of that because a lot of information is available on the internet. What I'm going to try doing here is that throw at you some important points that will help in this career planning. So the most important is that you need to know yourself really, really well. You need to know what your skills are, what your interests are, what your values are. And what I mean by these three is skills which are basically your core competencies, something that you are naturally good at or you acquire and you enjoy doing it. Interest, again, something that keeps you motivated in doing that work. And values is something that's the purpose, that why exactly do you want to do that. So keeping these three things in mind, one should align their career paths. At times it's not possible to align it, but one must do this self-analysis, know yourself well, and then take an informed decision about the next step. Now, explore your options. That's the next step. And how do you do that? Again, the ways are, you can do online research that most of us know. Informational interviews, I would say, are a really good way to explore your various different options that are out there. And now what is it? You basically talk to a person who's carved his or her niche in that particular domain and get the information directly from this person about that particular career path. And this is one really great way to understand a career option. The third is you do internships and volunteering in order to understand it much better. Okay, now once you've known yourself, you've kind of explored your options, you make your decision. Here again, I have written take the right decision. This decision might be right at that point in time, but may change with time. I am not advocating here that you keep changing your decisions, but it should not also happen that once a decision is taken, like in my case, I decided post my PhD to get into industry. And then after 3 years, I changed that decision. But when I had taken that decision, it was right for me. So, and that's precisely what I mean by take the right decision at that point and, go forward and enjoy that part. Okay, now this is really, really critical when you are planning your career journey. You become career ready. And what do I mean by becoming career ready? This is a little heavy slide. Maybe I would spend a couple of minutes here. While we were doing our we were in our formative years, I guess no one ever spoke about the importance of building a network. And nowadays we keep hearing that a network is really, really important. Why is it important? Because more the number of people you know in areas of your interest or things where you want to go, or even outside, more the number of opportunities that open up, and you can then in turn reach out to these people in order to understand that career path much better, or in order to get information about various opportunities, or to explore further opportunities. So it's really important that you start building your network from today itself, whichever stage of your journey you are in. Please pay good attention. Again, there's a lot of information out there, how to build a good network, the importance of networking and things like that. But please keep in mind that this is something that comes handy when you are, moving past your career journey. Second, very, very important and critical thing is that you pay good attention to putting your CV and resume together in a really, really professional manner. Just this morning, I was screening through the applications. There were some 40 applications. And the moment you see a great CV, the moment you see it aligned with the job opportunity that you have put out, it becomes so much easier to scan and select that CV. But if someone has not taken that effort to put in their thoughts that why they would fit in that job, or how their skill sets match with the opportunity, it's of no use, to be honest, especially in today's competitive world when there are really large number of people competing for one particular job option. So spend some time in putting your CV or resume together really, really well. Third thing, take interviews seriously. Don't take any single interview, even if, let's say, you are not interested. Do not take it casually. It's very important to take these interviews seriously, be professional, and put your best foot out there in order to achieve that success. Fourth point here, learn the art of giving an elevator pitch. Really, really important. That how do you learn this art of giving an elevator pitch and present who you are to this person whom, let's say, you meet in an elevator and you have only 30 seconds to explain who you are. Fifth, have mentors. Very important to have these people in your life who help you climb up the ladder by giving you positive inputs, by giving you right advice at the right time. So these are 5 things which are really important. I have gone through these really quick, but I would suggest that please go and read more about each one of these points in detail on internet. Okay, few other skills that are really important is people's management, organizational skills, communication ability. You've been hearing Hina, Banya, and Yukti today about the importance of these. So it's really, really important that you communicate well, you be a great negotiator, be a lifelong learner. Ability to give attention to the details is another thing that would come very handy as a skill set in your career journey. Time management, multitasking. This list is pretty long, but I've just put down few key things that one must keep in mind while preparing for a career journey. Okay, I guess I would skip that. And here I would switch and tell you something, as I mentioned in the very beginning, that it's no longer that one single path. Depending on your own interest, your skills, I guess time has come when we must start looking for various different options that are available out there. And this is a page I have taken from our book Disha that was written by Dr. Suman Govil, and it's available on India Bioscience website for a free download. So it talks about various different career paths that are available for life science graduates. And one must go into each of these, understand what it takes, what this career option is all about, what it takes to get into it, what skill sets are needed, and then take an informed decision. Again, I would, considering the time, I would not get into the details of each one of these options. The book very beautifully talks about each of these career paths in detail. So please go and read this book. Okay, so this again talks about, you can be a researcher, teacher or educator, science communicator, an artist, journalist, grants manager. The list is long, and you have people now right here in India who are following all these different career paths, and who can be of help in order to understand the career path better. So I would like to just end this part of the talk with a couple of slides here to say that have this courage to take an unknown path, because most of these are, I would say, not completely unknown now. When we were getting into these were unknown, but a decade from then, things have become much more visible now. But still, there is a lot of darkness out there in terms of understanding of these paths. But my suggestion and advice would be that if you want to go to a different path, have that courage and unlock this lock towards the path to success and happiness. Okay, so what are the key takeaways I would want you to take from this part of my talk? Be clear of what you do not want. And this is something I say from my own experience. I was very clear what I do not want, even if you do not know what you want. And this really helps, this process of eliminating certain parts from your journey and keeping open the other ones, exploring, experiencing, and then taking a final call that where you want to head to is very, very important. Other thing that each one of us must remember is that degree in science is a powerful tool, and that opens multiple avenues. So craft your career very carefully. There would be crossroads even after all these careful, thoughtful decisions. There would be crossroads. So think, align, and move forward. Be open to opportunities that come your way. Never say no, because each experience matters. Be decisive and courageous to take risk. Never be afraid, and that's when you would really start enjoying your journey. Okay, so I guess very quickly, next few minutes, just a couple of minutes, I would walk you through India Bioscience, who we are, what we do, and how we can be of help to each one of you. So India Bioscience is a program that works around networking, communication, skill development, education, data, and policy. So these are our 5 different verticals. We are a program based in National Center for Biological Sciences, Bangalore, and we've been around for a little more than a decade now. And what we do, so as I said, these are the 5 different verticals. I would not get into each of these verticals today, but I would introduce you to the website. That's our face that keeps changing every week, at least 2 times. If you have not visited our website, I request you to go and visit this website. Here in the handout section, I believe a document has been shared with some key links about the resources that I'm going to talk about, but please download that, and that would be very, very helpful. Okay, now how can you as students or people who are moving ahead in this career journey, whatever it is, it can be in research, education, communication, IP, or anything, but there are different ways to engage with us. You would discover a lot of resources. There are these podcasts that we have been doing. If you remember, I just spoke about informational interviews. So we have, in fact, for all of you, for people like you, we have spoken with various different people from various different walks of life science ecosystem to understand about that career path, and presented in the form of these podcasts under our India Bio Speaks channel. So please do go and listen to these, because that will give you a good glimpse of this diverse career opportunities. You can write for us. You want to share your journey. If there's an interesting story, very motivating story, please do connect with us. There are various other resources that each one of you who each one of us actually who are in the scientific ecosystem must be aware of. There are these various webinars that or recordings of these webinars that you can explore, and we keep doing various different skill building workshops where you can participate. Okay, so these are some of the key resources. You can go to the resource section, explore the careers in science resources. There are a large number of talks, videos. These are the two books I was mentioning. The Career in Science is a very small handout, but very informative. And Disha is something that each one of you must explore. These are the podcasts, a screenshot of the various different podcasts that are up there on our website. This is the book that we launched just last week, Means to a Beginning, Funding Opportunities for PhD Students and Postdocs. So this is a comprehensive book which talks about the funding opportunities that are available for PhDs and postdocs. And this is developed in collaboration with the Research and Development Office at Bangalore Life Science Cluster. Again, this book is available for a free download. I believe I've given the link in the handout. And if not, it's right there on our homepage and one can download it from there. Okay, so I would end with a quote from my role model. Climbing to the top demands strength, whether it is to the top of Mount Everest, which each one of you would agree, or to the top of your career. So have that strength, have that courage, and I'm sure you all would succeed in your career journeys. So with that, thank you. You can reach out to me at this email ID, smita@indiabioscience.org, and I'm also there on all different social media, but Twitter would be the best to connect, or LinkedIn. So with that, I would end my talk. Thank you very much. And if there are questions, I'm happy to take that.
Thank you so much, Smita. That was a very, very comprehensive talk. And you have summarized actually some of the key learnings from our sessions very beautifully in your talk. So thank you for that. And yes, we do have a lot of questions pouring in, which I'll quickly read out for you. So somebody is asking that what are your thoughts on the researcher academia stereotype? Is it important for the scientists to break such stereotypes? If yes, how have you done it?
Sorry, I missed the first part of the question, Yukti. There was some.
Okay, I'll repeat. So what are your thoughts on the researcher academia stereotype? Is it important for the scientists to break such stereotypes? If yes, how have you done it?
Okay, I guess I would say that, that's how the whole research or the academic ecosystem has evolved over years, over decades, over centuries. And I do not see that one should blame the scientific or that academic setup, but times have changed. And with time, each one of us should also change. And I also understand that people who were never exposed to these career paths would not be the right or would not be able to communicate that thought to the next generation. Now it is the onus of the next generation who has access to good amount of information at the click of a button to explore this path, and as I said, have that courage to explore different options and go for it, rather than worrying about the stereotype or what others would think when you are changing or shifting gears. And that's precisely what I had done. If I can share, I know I had a lot of people were upset when luckily not my parents, but a lot of other people were upset, and for long they kept on telling me that what are you doing with your career. And I guess I just held on to my focus. I was enjoying that journey, I was learning, and I was sure that I would find the place where I would get that happiness. So believe in yourself.
Rightly said. So the next question is that what are your views on changing paths in career, which you elaborated on? What if halfway through my PhD or postdoc I realize I'm no more interested in the research area that I'm pursuing and I want to do something else?
Very difficult question, but yes, an important one. I guess I would say that leaving something in between, and this is a very personal thought I have, but it would vary from people to people depending on the circumstances and things like that. And for those people, I would say, you as an individual have to take that decision. But if you'll ask my thoughts, I would say that if you can finish something with full dedication, finish that degree, don't leave in between, even if you have realized that you want to shift. This is not the path I want to continue. What you can do instead in that time period is keep your focus, keep your dedication towards whatever you are pursuing, but you can also start, a dialogue with your mentor and express your interest and start building the key skill sets that are needed in order to get into the path that you wish to. Let's say you want to become a communicator, a science communicator. Express that interest to your mentor. That's the best. But if you think that, that's not a possibility and that would really derail things, still there's no harm in investing your time outside the lab hours to start working towards your skills. Start, either engaging with as a freelancer or join courses, build your skills, build your portfolio, so that when you finish, you are kind of set to get into the other path. Yeah.
Thank you. So, Smita, somebody is asking what are the skills or experience that is required to become a science writer?
I guess there are much more better. I guess you all should be able to answer that question much better. I really don't think. See, it's a very inherent skill that you are able to communicate your thoughts and that information so that anyone or everyone out there. Yes.
I think we lost her.
Yeah, I guess I just got muted. I'm not sure why. So I was saying that writing or communicating your thoughts to a general audience or others is something which is a very inherent quality, but one can always hone it further. And for that, I feel two very important things is to read extensively and write extensively. Even if your first write up may just go down the trash can or wherever, but keep writing, keep practicing. Have a peer review sessions, have mentors who can help you with the writing process, and that will really help to grow further and maintain these writings in a very nice comprehensive either a blog or some kind of website so that you can showcase it when the right time comes.
So, Smita, this is one last question and a very important question that we have received. Leaving academia to pursue other career options in science and research is still not looked upon favorably in the Indian research ecosystem. Your views on this and what needs to be done for this notion to be changed?
Okay, let me clarify one thing. It's not just the Indian research ecosystem; it's across the globe. And across the globe, it's just that maybe West is little ahead of us. Things have changed little earlier than us, but it's not an issue just with the Indian academic setup. That's one. And second, what we can do to change this mindset, right, Yukti? That was the question. Yes. So what we can do by proving it that the other career paths are equally satisfying, equally lucrative, and for that you need to have, I would say again, courage to go to that path and carve your niche and be maybe a role model or a person who can showcase that. Don't have to showcase, I would say, but a person who can show to the world that, well, this is possible, this is important, and this can only happen if you as an individual are satisfied with your own career path. So people automatically would change over time. I guess we cannot change the mindset of people that the other career paths are not as lucrative as research path overnight. This has to happen with time, with effort. And I'm sure it's already happening in the country, if not at the pace that it should have. It's changing quite drastically. And a lot of opportunities are opening up across. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Smita. I'm sure a lot of our audience members have got inspiration from your story, and they would have gotten a better idea about the various non-academic career options and opportunities that are out there. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks very much. And Yukti, if I can just add one last point, and this is something, we took a very deliberate call at India Bioscience not to call any of these career paths alternate or lateral. We decided to call them science careers, and that's another way to give them, equal weightage. And so that's something each one of us who want to, bring this change must do. To not call alternate or lateral careers.
Totally agree with you. Thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Smita. On that note, I would like to invite our final guest for today. So we have with us another science communicator, Suchita Champak from Cyrio, who will be telling us more about their science communication initiatives. This is actually a bonus session that was not introduced to you before, but this is not going to be a very long session. I think Suchita will be taking 10 minutes to 12 minutes time to finish her presentation, and over to you, Suchita.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Just give me a second. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Suchita Champak, as Yukti introduced, and it was a really inspiring talk from Smita, and it's always a pleasure to listen to her, and she's just set the stage for whatever I wanted to talk right now. So she's mentioned a lot of the career paths that you can explore outside of academia, right? So I'm going to talk about something really specific today, that is science communication, a career path that I have chosen, and in combination with entrepreneurship. So Cyrio is a digital science media and communications platform that I have just started very recently. And the main tenets of Cyrio is communicating science and building an ecosystem for science content creators, and inspire people to gain first-hand experience in communicating science, right? So a lot of you had a lot of doubts and questions with regard to how are you going to start out, what would be the skills of a very good writer or a communicator, right? So this is a place that where you can start off, try and explore, try your hand at communicating science. And this is a platform where we are building for science students and researchers for networking with their peers, to to sort of share your experiences, and learn a lot of things outside of academia in terms of science communication, find the resources to upskill yourselves, and also to find newer opportunities, right? So one of the parts of Cyrio is the SciComm Hub, which is a space for expression for students and researchers to communicate science. Here, this science communication platform is for communicating science to people beyond academia. So I'm sure you've received a lot of information and a lot of tools since morning about how you can build your scientific writing abilities, right? So that was to your peers. Now here is an a space where you can try and see if you really want to communicate your science to people beyond academia, let's say to your personal networks, like say your families or friends, right? So, and here this Cydio is a platform where you can choose a format of your choice to communicate science. That could be in the form of writing, in the form of videos, arts, podcasts, etc. Right? So we are format agnostic, and we in fact encourage people or researchers who are interested to communicate science explore different formats of communication. And so far, on our platform, we have had different articles and series that we've published so far, and we are in the in the process of publishing more such diverse content, right? So we are not limited to a specific theme, but rather we want to include a lot of the aspects that of science or research that you're doing, which will be relevant to the general public. Right. So as a part of SciComm Hub, currently we are working on this specific series called People of Northeast India, where we want to highlight and chronicle journeys of researchers or anyone in STEM. It could be people who are in the medical field. It could be professors and teachers, right? So we want to chronicle journeys of people from Northeast India, and we focus on how these stories can highlight the difficulties, or rather the differences that people from Northeast India face when they are in the Northeast region versus India or even globally, right? So this is the current series that we're working on. So if you're interested in contributing to the current series, or if you have something interesting that you would want to write or publish, and this is a place where you can try that. So they can always help you find the right idea to begin with, structure the piece or concept, and help with the editing, and finally publish your first piece, right? So, and also in this process you can always, so we are building a network, a community where you can network with your peers, like I mentioned earlier, right? So if you're interested to communicate science or start working on your writing skills beyond academic writing, so you could always write to us with a brief idea of or pitch what you would like to write about, and in the format of your choice. You can write to me at one of the email IDs, or even get in touch with me on LinkedIn or Twitter. So yes, so this is an open call to anyone who's interested in communicating science and trying their hand at communicating science. It could be, you could be at any stage. You could be even doing your PhD. You've just started out, or towards the end of doing your PhD. You want to try a different career format, right? So you could always write to us, and we can see how we can help. Yes.
Thank you, Suchita. Thanks a lot for joining us today. This was a perfect ending to our workshop, with a real life experience to present to a young audience today, and wishing you all the best for your initiative.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Yukti.
Yeah. So this brings us to the end of today's workshop. Thank you so much for being so patient and being such an amazing and engaging audience. One last announcement before we end the workshop: the certificate of the workshop will be issued to only those who will be submitting the feedback form, which you will be redirected to after the session ends. And I'll request you all to please provide your valuable feedback to us. Please note that we will be issuing the certificates, but it might take 5 to 7 working days for you to receive your certificate. And this brings us to an end. Thank you so much for joining us today. Please do take care of yourself, and all the best. Thank you.